All right, y'all, welcome back to Common Arms channel. Okay, so today we are checking out some very interesting news that has come across pretty much every social media platform that I'm on, including my Discord. A lot of awesome memes already about this particular situation. So very recently, I think it was actually today, as I'm recording it, it's the 23rd, the Wagner chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin, was saying that the Russian military conducted a strike on some of his men. In addition to some other things, I guess like the Russian military was hiding like 2,000 bodies to, obfuscate some of the casualty rates. But some very, very interesting developments. So today what I want to do is check out a couple videos. One is just like a standard, it's an NBC sort of news report or newscast. But then we're going to check out this speech from Yevgeny himself, which would be pretty interesting to kind of hear from his perspective, because it looks like he kind of exposed a lot of stuff that a lot of people already kind of assumed. But yeah, let's go ahead and check these out, because this is, again, very interesting stuff, and I think this war is going to have a very interesting shift at this point.
And we do have some breaking news that is just into us here. Russia is investigating the head of a powerful mercenary organization, the Wagner Group, after the leader of that group vowed to retaliate for what he says was the Kremlin's killing of thousands of his troops. Moscow, for its part, says...
Again, I think those details kind of got a little bit muddled. I don't think that's necessarily, at least from what I saw, that wasn't necessarily what he was saying specifically. I think they were kind of two separate things. But yeah, when the Wagner chief is going out and kind of retaliating or speaking out against the Russian military, now we already know their history together, the Russian military and, the Wagner group, their history together hasn't been like that cohesive. There's a lot of butting heads, which you can well imagine when you have like a military organization and then you have like a mercenary group. There's going to be a lot of conflictions when it comes to resourcing, when it comes to communication. But this is pretty gnarly to actually do a coordinated attack. And I don't know if it was like a green on blue kind of thing, or if they're, for whatever reason, purposefully attacking the Wagner group. Yeah, of course, it's not going to bode well or end well for the Russian military, especially since this was like basically their strongest ally when it came to, who is actually working with them to fight against the Ukrainian forces.
They consider the comments part of an armed mutiny or a coup, and they say they are now opening an inquiry into the group. Wagner Group has sent thousands of its troops into Ukraine.
So assassination attempts,
second
basically.
Army for Russia. But disagreements between the Kremlin and Wagner's leaders have escalated in recent months. NBC's Raf Sanchez is covering this for us from Kyiv. So Raf, break this down for us. What is the latest?
Ryan, this is a fast-moving
Must be stupid
and
early
confusing situation that is playing out in the
1:44
in Russia. It is 1:45 a.m. here in Kyiv. It's 1:45 in Moscow. This is what we know at this hour. As you said,
I mean, and a lot of people in the Discord as well are saying like they were about to go to sleep, but then when they saw this kind of popping up in their feeds, like a lot of them are kind of staying up to see what interesting developments happen over the next, couple hours or so.
for months, there have been growing tensions between the Wagner mercenary group and the Russian military. But in the last couple of hours, those tensions have spilled over into an all new level.
Yeah, no
and
kidding.
In just the last hour or so, a senior Russian general has appeared on Russian state television and is accusing the leader of the Wagner group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, of mounting a military coup against the Russian government. Now,
So I wonder if I can find that video. So a Russian general was speaking out against him. Now it goes to say like one thing, if he does his speech and then they're like, okay, we're going to look into it. That's one thing. But when a Russian general, like a higher up general is like, okay, no, these guys are basically inciting a coup, then that really kind of, solidifies that deal there. Like they're definitely going to start butting heads. Now, this is particularly interesting because when you consider the insider threat sort of perspective, that's at least like an army term, insider threat, which basically means not necessarily always from the same, like within the organization. That's generally how insider threat is used. But in this, sort of circumstance, we can kind of use insider threat as within Russia, you're going to have people and, a pretty substantial fighting force going against the Russian military. So as opposed to having, these relatively defined borders where you kind of understand like Ukrainian forces on this side, Russian forces on this side. Now you have a whole bunch of people inside of your own country that are sort of vowing to retaliate against the military. Going to be a very, very difficult thing to contain if they can at all. And again, we've seen like they've had some struggles logistically and also just in general with communications. And I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of support for this special operation anyway. So it's going to be very interesting. I'd like to see, there's a channel called 1420, I think. He basically goes out and interviews like the Russian citizens. I'd love to see what they have to think about all of this right now. But again, I'm sure within the country themselves, there's going to be some kind of meddling of words when it comes to what's actually happening.
I would say at this moment, there is no indication that a coup is underway. We are not seeing reports of fighting in the streets of Moscow or cities like this. But the Kremlin is taking no chances here. The FSB, Russia's domestic security agency, has opened what they say is a criminal investigation into Prigozhin, the Wagner leader. They are accusing him of mounting an armed rebellion.
Yeah, and we kind of see what happens when you have these FSB investigations. Some weird stuff ends up happening to the people that they're investigating.
Against the government. And these Russian generals are appealing on live television for these Wagner soldiers to stay loyal to Vladimir Putin, not to act against the state. So this is very murky. It is very hard to understand what exactly is going on. But the schism between the Wagner group and the Russian military has opened into a chasm that is threatening to tear Russia apart right now.
Yeah, I think at this point, Yevgeny should probably stop wearing underwear because we've seen what happens when you let your guard down with that one.
We are closely monitoring to see what else happens. President Putin's spokesman has put out a one-line statement. It says, President Putin has been informed of all the events around Prigozhin. Necessary measures are being taken. And there are reports
that's all they could do in that time. They're probably freaking out.
The Russian state media is preparing an emergency broadcast to bring citizens of that country up to speed, at least on what the Kremlin wants them to know.
I would pay to hear that.
I know this is early in this whole process, but we also know that Ukraine is in the midst of a pretty important counteroffensive. How could this impact Ukraine's efforts in that regard?
Yeah, and again, that's super interesting because of course, there's going to be some Wagner forces still on the ground, still, engaged with the Ukrainian forces. So I wonder what's going to happen with that. If you're going to see like a ceasefire in those areas, or if you're just going to kind of see, or if they're just going to kind of stand by, go with the orders that they have already, and then just, play it by ear. But I think, especially when the Wagner chief is going out and saying, a statement, he's given a statement, and he's exposing these kind of Russian lies, which we'll check out after this, then I think at that point you're probably going to be like, yeah, let's back off of this line real quick and reassess. But also it's going to be kind of awkward because if you back off the line, I mean, you're probably, the Wagner group mercenaries are probably surrounded by Russian military all over the place. So it's like, yeah, let's go this way where there's no Ukrainian or Russian forces.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Ukraine, after months of preparation, is throwing its forces into this counteroffensive against the Russian military, who are entrenched across the south and east of this country. And at the exact same time, it appears that Russia's armed forces are turning on each other. As you said, Prigozhin claimed earlier on tonight that the Russian military launched a strike on a Wagner camp and killed his mercenaries.
On the camp? And this isn't like, okay, they did some indirect fire on a trench system because they thought that there were Ukrainians there. If there was like a Wagner camp, a camp kind of, denotes it's been there for a while. It has like a certain structure, probably has like a command post or whatever established. If they're attacking that, like, what was the point of that one? That's really interesting call. And I wonder how that went down. Like, they're getting attacked and then they're trying to figure out, they probably, assumed that it's Ukrainian forces, but I guess also depending on how far out on the front lines they were, they would be like, okay, what the heck? This doesn't make any sense. Then they find out that it's Russian forces. I don't know. That's pretty bizarre. I wonder, like, if they actually got a confirmation from somewhere, maybe like their scouts or what have you, that it was actually Russian forces, firing on them.
claiming that the Russian forces are now shooting at each other. Again, NBC News has
No
not been
kidding?
able to independently verify that. Prigozhin has a history of exaggeration, but this shows you just how high the stakes are in the middle of the night in Russia.
I mean, if he's saying that
Absolutely
again,
fascinating.
like,
Ralph Sanchez,
it's going
thank you
to
for that
force
live report on the
actions.
breaking news. We appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our.
That's kind of an abrupt end there. But okay, so now we're going to check out this speech. It's not too long. I think it was like 3 minutes or so. But yeah, let's see what he's actually exposing from the Russian military. I don't know how true a lot of this stuff is going to be. I'll take it with a grain of salt. But again, like him actively speaking out is going to force some things to happen and some dominoes to fall, if you will. Okay, I'm trying to find the best way to do this. I mean, if I make myself smaller, that helps. But I guess I could just make myself bigger when I pause it. Sure.
Это происходило все эти долгие 8 лет, с 14 по 22. Иногда нарастало количество различных перестрелок, грубо говоря, обмена боеприпасами, обменом выстрелами, иногда уменьшалось. На 24 февраля ничего сверхординарного не было. Сейчас уже Министерство обороны пытается обмануть общественность, пытается обмануть президента и рассказать историю о том, что со стороны Украины была безумная.
Okay, this is a pretty insane start. Like, he is straight up saying this entire special operation was bullshit, and, you know, they are literally just using this sort of propaganda to propagate this war, this entire war that has kicked off since then. So that right there is, I mean, that's pretty much as controversial as you can get. You know, if I was in the Russian government and the Wagner chief was saying stuff like that, I would be sweating for sure.
Агрессии, и они собирались вместе со всем блоком НАТО на нас напасть. Поэтому спецоперация, так называемая 24 февраля, она была начата совершенно по другим причинам. Для чего была нужна война? Война нужна была для того, чтобы кучка тварей просто поторжествовала и попиарилась, показав, какая она сильная армия.
Handful of scumbags? And again, like, this is from The Sun. I imagine they did a pretty decent job translating it. But if for whatever reason, if you guys are native speakers and there's like a slight deviation in translation or it translates more accurately to something else, let us know down in the comment section. But yeah, I mean, these are pretty specific words like scumbags and stuff. Oh, he's throwing names. He's name dropping too.
Как великий тувинский военачальник, который стал дважды героем и маршалом в фактическое мирное время. Война была нужна не для того, чтобы вернуть в наше лоно российских граждан, и не для того, чтобы демилитаризировать и денацифицировать Украину.
Yeah, no
Она
shit.
была нужна ради одной звезды с дополнительной вышивкой по периметру, чтобы один человек...
Oh, dude, look good on a coffin pillow. Okay, very choice words.
Психически больной, когда ляжет в гроб, чтобы на подушке принесли эту звезду. Шойгу живет по принципу, чтобы в ложь поверили, она должна быть чудовищная. И поэтому идут обманы. Две реальности. На земле сейчас, на сегодняшний день, российская армия отступает на Запорожском, Херсонском направлениях. ВСУ продавливают российскую армию. Мы умываемся кровью.
Damn, again.
Резервы никто не дает.
Controversial stuff.
Управления никакого нет. По-прежнему истерики, в которых начальник генштаба после стакана водки визжит, как баба базарная, как свинья. Телефон требуя вернуть позиции. И все, что может сделать командующий, он может сказать, все возвращено, и нарисовать на карте красную.
So they're like, no, you guys need to go and take this back. And the commander on the ground, she's like, oh, yeah, we got that already. Just change that graphic up a little bit.
Полосочку на несколько километров севернее, чем она сегодня
Several kilometers
реально
doesn't
есть.
seem like a lot, but when
Поэтому
you're talking about like the fighting necessary
то,
to
что
take
нам
that, pretty
рассказывают, это
substantial.
глубочайший обман.
Damn, okay. Yeah, so again, some very choice words, some very specific words used, but again, like he wasn't sugarcoating it. He's like, this entire war is bullshit, and these guys are, lying to not only the people of Russia, but just, each other. They're lying to their higher echelon, saying, yeah, we got this covered, everything is as you expect it, when in reality it's not. So, I mean, coming from him, when their forces are kind of dispersed, and intermingled with the actual Russian forces, it's a pretty credible source. And again, whether or not it's like he has been kind of BSing in the past, him kind of starting it off again, kind of saying, yeah, this entire war is bullshit. That's a pretty strong statement to start with. So it kind of leads a little bit more credibility. Again, I'm just going to take it with a grain of salt because I'm not really too sure. I haven't been battle tracking that much to be able to confirm if it is, likely that those Russian commanders are, kind of full of crap. But again, I want to know what you guys think of this. It's a super interesting development. Again, like I think 20 people already sent me like articles or videos about this topic. And again, that's because a lot of people are invested, because it is pretty substantial when it comes to this war in Ukraine. Because now you're going to have the Ukrainian forces, giving hell and pushing back these Russian forces. But then you're going to have the Russian forces also kind of hitting each other. And it's just going to completely upheave everything that's going on. There's not really going to be any sort of law and order. There's going to be no sort of trust or communication. And again, if there were friendly fire incidents before, now it's going to be even gnarlier. And I don't know exactly how they were sort of delineating between, mercenaries and, Russian military troops. But yeah, pretty crazy stuff. Let me know what you guys think, of course. Let me know what you think is going to be a result of this. Let me know if you think that some things aren't as accurate as they were sort of portrayed in these news articles or elsewhere online. Again, it's an interesting development, and it's going to be interesting to sort of track this over the next days, weeks, and months. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. That's it for this one. I'll see you on the next one.